Hey y'all, it's Brijin the Museum Stitcher. Welcome back to my channel for Flosstube number 17. Today is January 21st of 2023, and yeah, welcome. So everyone who's new here, this is my little corner of the internet where I talk about my crafty life, mostly about cross stitch, but also about my other crafty things. Today that includes knitting and reading. So if you like reading or cross stitch or both, definitely stick around. This is a channel for you. So for those of you who are returning, thank you. I actually just checked about 2 minutes before I started filming this video, and I've hit 4,000 subscribers. So thank you guys so much from the bottom of my heart. I really started this channel thinking it would go nowhere, and it feels so amazing to know that there's so many out there who are interested in my stitchy journey and who have enjoyed following my progress, and I love you guys so much. So because we only hit it 5 minutes before I sat down to film this video, it won't be the 4K extravaganza that I want to do. So the next video is gonna have some really exciting giveaways and celebration stuff. So thank you all from the bottom of my heart. I'm so floored to be celebrating that achievement here at the beginning of 2023. So thank you. But as far as actual content of today goes, it feels like I have not filmed in forever. And I know it's only been 2 weeks, so it's really strange. I've worked on about 4 projects since I've seen you last, and I have good progress to share. It's just like, it feels like it's been forever. I did pre-record some videos, so if you're interested in checking those out, I will link them in the cards, whichever side they come up on, and in the description box down below. I filmed my 2023 Stitchy plans where I walk you through all of my projected starts for the year. I'm gonna be doing 25 starts for my 25th year. And then the other video that I pre-recorded and released in the last several weeks is my 2022 finish parade. So I finished about 15 things in 2022, and I walk you through what I did. So if you're interested in either of those, go check them out. But today we're gonna talk about my latest stitchy goodness and what I've been up to. So yeah, let's get into it, shall we? Anyway, first thing, let's start off with a new start. So this is the second of my 2 January planned starts, and it went exactly as I planned. This is Good Intentions by Barrick. I've had this in my stash for a long time, and I really wanted to start it. And it was finally seeing Maddie of Kitty Stitch on Instagram. She finished hers, and she did a pink conversion, and she changed the dog in the pattern into a cat, and I loved it. So I decided to do my own complete color conversion for this chart. Based on everything I have in stash, I get the Color and Cotton, Thread of the Month clubs, and I've accumulated quite the stash in only having the club for about 6 months because I get about 6 skeins every month. And I really haven't used very many of them, so I decided to deep dive into my stash and just completely see if I could kit up the project from there without having to buy anything additionally. And I got so frustrated with picking my colors that I ended up taking my whole ring of Color and Cotton floss up to work. And I had one of my coworkers who was an art major dive into it, and she picked a whole bunch of different combos for me, and we just ran with one of hers. So it's exciting to see it come to fruition. And if you love the colors, shout out to Hannah. But it is looking amazing so far, so let me show you. It's so good. Actually, you know what, real quick, let me share. This is the project bag I've been keeping it in, and this is a new acquisition for me from Jasmine Custom Bags on Instagram. If you've not heard of her bags yet, go check them out. They are seriously some of the best at the market right now. They fit an 11 by 11 Q-snap just perfectly and have room for all of my notions. Right here I keep my scissors and any notes I keep with my project. It's fantastic. Their bags are so good. So anyway, this is where I've gotten to. Now, I only started this one about 4 days ago, whatever Tuesday it was. I'll put the date here. I think it's like the 16th or 17th. It's one of those two is when I started this pattern. And yeah, I've gotten very far on it. It's not very big. It's only like 115 or so stitches square-ish. It's not exactly square, but you know. But this is my color conversion and how it's coming out. So let me walk you through it. So basically what I started doing, and this is, I don't know the correct way to convert something, but I sat down with a piece of paper and my chart, and I wrote down what each symbol was used for in the pattern. So for example, like this was the hair, and this color was the dress, and this color was the tops of the spools and the hoop. And so like, you know, I kind of divided everything out, and I saw if I could kind of combine or lump colors, and I was able to do that. So I erased the need for like 3 colors, just based on like only using 2 shades of brown, or, you know, something else like that. Anyway, I kind of figured out what each color was meant to be and then worked off of that. So I knew I needed 3 accent colors, a black, a white, I thought 3 shades of brown, but I got that down to 2. And then a skin color, and that was about it. So when you kind of boiled it down to its bare bones, this was a pretty easy starting point. And I went through my stash, and sure enough, I picked out a black and white. So my black is rustic black and my white is old lace. And then I picked out 2 browns, which was hot cocoa from Color and Cotton and dark walnut from Forbidden Fiber. I have 2 Forbidden Fiber Company flosses in here. That is one of them. So 2 shades of brown. Then for the skin color, I grabbed Forbidden Fiber Company's Sympathy Butters No Parsnips, which was the skin color in the Valentine's Day at Downton box. So I knew it worked as a skin tone roughly close to mine, because I did want the girl to look like me. And then for the accent colors, this is what my friend Hannah picked. It is a combination of all Color and Cotton. And I know the pattern only has 3 accent colors, but I decided to work in a 4th. And it is Barn Red, Merlot, Medium Teal, and Acorn Squash. I apologize for the meowing, it's just gonna happen. But yeah, these colors look amazing together. And so here they are in the piece. This is 36 count Dusty Road linen from Seraphim Fabrics, something I've had in my stash for a while. I intended to actually use this for my Christmas garden that I started a while ago, but I did that on a completely different fabric. So yeah, so I worked in Maddie of Kitty Stitch's Little Cat. She sent me her chart conversion, and it's fantastic. And then for the girl, I changed her hair, so she actually has some. And then I am not stitching her face. I'm gonna leave her as a silhouette, which is why I also didn't stitch the cat's face. I just left it as a silhouette. And then I traded out the white in the dress for Barn Red, which is that pink shade. I worked in the other 3 accent colors here, and then I worked in the pink here. This is gonna be Merlot. And then I'll work in the other 2 accent colors on this side in those spools. Then I just need to do, let's see, I just need to finish out this spool, do the bottom border, do the spools on this side, a couple random stars, and the quote. And this one will be done. So idealistically, I would like to finish this by the end of January. It'd be awesome to knock out my first finish of my new starts for the year. I don't know if that's gonna happen, but I am obsessed with how the conversion is turning out. I was a little nervous when I just had this border in because it looked a little bit primary school, a little bit primary colors for me, but I think it's gonna work out. The more I work the colors into the pattern, I think it's a trust the process kind of a situation. But yeah, trust the process, it's gonna look great. I also changed the A to an H because that's my last name, or my last initial. And the last initial for me is much easier to chart because B is a difficult letter to chart. But yeah, this fits completely in an 11 by 11 Q-snap to work off of, and yeah, that's the entire width of the piece. I just gotta finish out the height. Okay, so that's it for the new starts. The next projected new start I think is gonna be Through Love from Hemlock and Rye Stitchery. I'll show you what it looks like here. I'm waiting for my fabric to come in, and then I need to grab a couple flosses, and I should be good to go. But the plan for that one is to start it while I'm rereading Crescent City, and I'm not quite ready to start that book yet. It'll actually be my 3rd reread of Crescent City. But honestly, it's so complicated that sometimes it's just good to read it multiple times. Yeah, so that's my next start, and it shouldn't be until first weekend of February-ish. I haven't so I'm starting them each month, but I haven't nailed down the specific day of every month to start, you know, because I'll start when I feel like starting, just within the month. But anyway, that's everything for new starts. So we'll do the whips I've worked on, I've got a little bit of haul, some knitting to share, books. I also want to tell you a little bit about my trip to Nashville, because for those of you who watched my last video, you knew I was going to Nashville. Anyway, went to Nashville last weekend. It was a great time. But I'll share a little bit about my trip, and then I have a Flosstube shout out to give. And yeah, we'll get out of here. So some variation of those events will be happening in the rest of this. But we'll get into cross stitch whips first. So let's see, I worked on 3 of my whips in the last 2 weeks. The first one is the Dark Queen of the Earth from not Modern Folk Embroidery, it's Autumn Lane Stitchery, not even close. Anyway, this one, I have a picture of where I was. I will also insert that here. I know in my last Flosstube, I was close to finishing part 3, or at least the first half of part 3, and I did. So here's what it looks like. I am stitching mine on a 32 count old gold linen from Fiber on a Whim, and I'm sorry, she's gonna stay partially in the Q-snap because she's where I need her to be. But you can see the whole stitched piece so far. I finished out part 3, and then I got the smallest start into part 5. So my plan is, because I have her in the Q-snap here, I'm going to go ahead and finish out part 5, which is kind of a garden-ish scene on this side of her. And then once I finish that, I will go back, finish out the other half of part 3, and do part 5, which is the other kind of mirrored garden image. So that's the plan, but I have not touched her in the last like 5 days. I've been so focused on Good Intentions. I really haven't touched much else. Sorry. But you know, like sometimes it's just good when a stitch just pulls you in and you just want to stitch it till it's done. And that's how I feel about Good Intentions. It's so small, but honestly, I think I could do it. Oh, the other note about Good Intentions, I am stitching that one 2/2. I tried 1/2 and the coverage was just too sparse. And it's one of those weird things with 36 count where some dyers, their 36 is a lot looser than others. And I guess Seraphim Fabrics is a 2-strand 36 for me. Yeah, it looked weird with 1 strand. So I added the second and it's doing fine. So probably distorting my variegation a little bit just because I am using the loop method, because that's easy and it's just a lot less work. So that is my other note about Good Intentions. Back to Dark Queen of the Earth. I would love to be caught up with her by the end of February. We're gonna see. I don't think it's gonna happen unless, you know, the February chunk is a small amount of stitching. You never know. But I did hear that we started at the bottom of this queen because the Dark Queen of the Sea, they did the top half first and everyone was complaining that the bottom half was too dense. So I imagine she'll be a little bit more sparse upstairs, and we're just kind of moving through the dense bit here right now. So, but yeah, looking really cool. I love the way the flosses have variegated down. It's a really fun stitch. And I do keep all of my flosses for this one in a project keeper that I made myself based off of the floss keeper from Tiger Lily Designs. So, wild floss. Anyway, these are all Adam Hart floss drop bobbins. So in each of these sleeves is one of these. You can wind it up to store like a bobbin, but when it's unwound, it is a floss drop. And I know I go through these all the time, but every video there's someone who has not seen these before, and every video I feel the need to tell someone about them. So these are one of the best cross stitch notions ever because all of my floss stays super organized. I can see everything at a glance. It just makes my life 20,000 times easier when working on a large project like this. And I'm making one for every large project I do ever. I actually have like 2 on my sewing table that I need to finish. I just have not felt like sewing recently, which is weird. But yeah, so that is the first whip I worked on. I started that on September 4th, by the way, of 2022 when she came out. The other whip I worked on this like barely any, but this is Bayun Cat from Forest Embroidery. This is my oldest whip, and it is my goal to have this done in the first part of 2023, just so it's off of my radar and I'm done stitching it and I can actually enjoy it. And this one, I'll pop a picture of where I was. I don't know if it's the most accurate version of where I was. Well, no, I guess I worked on it in my New Year's Eve 12 by 12, and that would have been the last time you saw him. But anyway, since then, I've gotten here. And he's on a 32 count kit fabric, which is some kind of linen, with the called for owl forest embroidery flosses. And since you've seen him last, I finished this corner motif. I did all of this like sparse blue. Hard to fold. I did all of this sparse blue and started in on this tree that sits here. Once that is done, the only things that I will have left to do is one motif about here, a row of trees, and a row of mice, and it should be finished. So if I made this the focus piece for probably about 4 days, I think I could knock it out. It's just, I only ever want to work on this sporadically, and I kind of have to force myself. But I want it done because it is a really cool stitch. It's just like, you know, I started this so long ago, my mind has moved on to like 20,000 other things. And that's a little hard sometimes to get yourself back in the mood for a piece like this. But it is so close to a finish. And I only worked on this for 1 day. So, I mean, it was really only like 3 hours of stitching, and I was able to, you know, block out all of this blue. And the variegation on these flosses is really amazing. I don't know if you can get your hands on owl forest embroidery flosses anymore since they are a Russian company. I don't quite know how you source them. I bought this stuff all back in 2021, so I'm not sure. But I have this in a project bag I got from XJuDesigns, and I'd love to free up this bag to put some other pink stuff in. We'll see. Okay, the final whip that I worked on, oh, I didn't tell you when I started that one. Started that one on September 28th of 2021, so oldest whip, over a year. The final whip that I worked on was my Beatrix Potter Sal. This is the Beatrix Potter Quaker Sampler by Stitchy Box Designs. And this is a Sal that I'm doing with a whole mess of people, including the creator of the Sal, which is Julie of Kansas City Girl in a Colorado World, and Melissa the Starless Stitcher on Instagram. And they started it, and I joined in on it, and so did the Seattle Stitcher, and so did Cam the Stitcher. I think a few other people did too. I don't know, I've been enjoying seeing everyone. But I started this is my New Year, New Start, started at the stroke of midnight. And I am doing mine on a 40 count gray sand by XJuDesigns with NPI 335 as my floss. Here's my progress shot. And this is where I got to. I have not worked on this too terribly much, even though I know I was supposed to. But basically I finished out this top motif here, and I started in on this second motif down vertically. And I have my floss on an adorable Top Knot Stitcher floss drop that she sent me with one of my orders. It has jam on it. And then I have a Mad for Minders needle minder holding my floss on there. Since it's a monochromatic piece, it's nice to have my floss held there by my needle minder so I don't ever have to like reach for it. It's highly recommend if you don't stitch like this. And this is just in a 7-inch Morgan hoop. Here's what the cut of fabric looks like. It's so good. And this olivey green is just looking amazing on it. I'm so happy with it. The NPI is actually really nice to work with. I normally don't gravitate towards the NPIs just because they're not very variegated, and they do tend to be a little bit expensive, but for a monochromatic piece, I thought it worked really well, and I'm loving it. The combination is fantastic. Shout out to my LNS The Stitch Niche because the folks over there helped me pick out the floss for this fabric. And it's so cool. It pops so well. I'm obsessed with it. And it is really fun to work on a monochromatic piece. I would like to finish out this motif and maybe start the center one here. Basically, this motif is the last full motif on the page. So moving on would be kind of moving into a motif that would be more than just a page finish. So I could go any direction. I might go ahead and just stitch the whole side vertically just to make sure that my counting is correct. I know it's going to be a pretty tight margin top to bottom because I was a dummy and I bought a fat quarter when I needed to buy a fat half, because with the, you know, like a 2-inch margin, I needed more than the 18 inches that this is, but we're gonna make it work. So the bottom border might be tight and I just kind of want to see what I'm getting into. as far as how tight it's gonna fit. So I'm thinking I might just go ahead and go vertically. And then we'll go back to the top and push out by page. But yeah, Beatrix Potter Sal, if you'd like to join us, feel free. Oh, Leanne Stitches of Forbidden Fiber Company fame is also doing it. But yeah, it's really, really fun so far. We don't have a hard finish date. It's just more of a start along, but it was a fun time to have a whole bunch of people do it at the same time. So yeah. So anyway, Flosstube shout out. I feel like I'm like running 80 miles an hour. This is what happens when I film at night. I'm like so much more disjointed than I normally am. Anyway, I'm only gonna do one Flosstuber. I have a few I wanna tell you about, but I'm gonna spread them out. So today's is the New Hampshire stitcher, Lauren. Go find her if you've not already. I'll pop a picture of what her channel looks like here, and I'll have her channel linked in the description box down below, so you can check her out if you want to. But Lauren has been on Instagram for a while, and she's starting some really amazing things. She has started is stitching. She's an amazingly talented stitcher. She's on the younger end, like myself, but she is working on some awesome samplers, and she has a really, really interesting stitchy taste. I love everything she's working on, and I followed her on Instagram for a while and was ecstatic to see that she started a Flosstube, and it's great. So I think you should all go check out Lauren's channel, go flood her stuff. She's only got 2 videos out right now, but one of them is a finishes parade, and I swear, if you want some enablement, that's the video for you. She also has a whip parade, which is fantastic. And yeah, just highly, highly enjoyable channel that I think you need to get in on the ground floor of. So that's my recommendation for you today. Go check out Lauren, go send her some love, tell her that I sent you. And yeah, go share the stitchy love with some new Flosstubers. Okay, so let's talk cross stitch haul. So aside from my bag that I already told you about, I got a hank of silk floss. This is the flower silk from Stitchy Box. I went ahead and got a hank of this, and it is the colorway Calling Birds. It's a limited edition, and I think I got the last one, so sorry. But I picked this up when I was looking for an alternative floss for my Beatrix Potter sampler. So I need to find a new monochromatic sampler to put on my list to stitch this with. But this is the colorway. It is the most gorgeous maroon, magenta, purple, blue variegation. I'm obsessed with it. Every one of these colors is just dark jewel tones, right? It's so good. And the hank is very large. So I got 100 yards. Yeah, 100-yard hank. Don't know what I'm gonna stitch with it, but it's amazing and it's nice to have in my stash for those fun monochromatic moments. I do enjoy a good monochromatic sampler. I think I've got like 4 monochromatic projects just because they're so easy to convert. And this one is going to make for a really cool piece one day. So yeah, it just didn't arrive in time for me to start Beatrix Potter that way, so I had to move to a backup. Okay, then the only other haul, well, no, I have a little bit of haul, sorry. Whoops. Anyway, I got my Color and Cotton Thread of the Month Club for January of 2023. This is the Primitive Neutrals. I get 3 skeins, and the colors are Valentine's Gray, Great Falls, and Champagne. Love Champagne. This is a really, really pretty combination. Absolutely obsessed. Love Color and Cotton floss. Highly, highly recommend their Thread of the Month Club. Honestly, this floss stitches the most like silk for me. It doesn't tangle. The colors are great. The variegation is subtle but still tonal, but it still feels like it's worth the over-dyed price. And then I also get 3 skeins of their classic collection, so their permanent collection. And the colors for this month are Clove, Seafoam, and Raw Linen. Very beachy. So yeah, those were my 6 skeins of floss this month. It's a really good time, and I love what this is doing for my stash. And then the fabric of the month for this month is pewter. I get a fat quarter of the 36 count linen, but I am switching to 46 just to beef up my 46 stash. This is what it looks like. It is a gorgeous gray blue. Don't know what I'll stitch on that, but it is the Neutral Club. So good. Highly recommend their fabric as well. But it is very hard to get into. Okay, and then the only other things that I bought were PDFs. So I bought the PDF chart of the very new, unveiled today, I think, Yasmin's Made with Love. It is Love Made Easy. Love Makes Everything Easy. One of those two. I'll pop a picture here. This chart is so beautiful. I love the folksy little is it a partridge? Quail? Pigeon? Pheasant? Pheasant. It's a pheasant. Anyway, I love the bird on this. I will be recharting the quote to something else just because I am single and maybe I'll make it something about birds. I don't know. Ooh, like an Emily Dickinson birds quote. That might be really good. Anyway. That's the plan for that one. But I had to buy the chart. So I will link Yasmin's channel down below. She runs a fantastic floss tube. I highly recommend her videos and her charts. She's a designer now and it's amazing. And this chart, I just had to have it. So I don't know where I'm gonna work it into my starts. I don't know. And the only other thing I bought, it's on its way and I'll show it to you in my next video, but I bought all of the supplies to do Oh Joyous Day from Blackbird Designs because Lauren, the New Hampshire stitcher, shared it on her Instagram and in her finishes video. And after seeing it, I'm sold. I had to start it. And I will be swapping it out for Isabella's Heart in February because I need that on my hoop now. So unfortunately, Isabella's Heart's gonna be pushed to a later start date, but it's worth it because Oh Joyous Day from Blackbird is so cool. So anyway, that is everything I bought. So let me tell you about my trip and show you my knitting. So let me tell you about my trip and my knitting kind of simultaneously. So I started 2 new knitting projects for my trip to Nashville because I wanted something to stitch on the plane, and taking cross stitch on an airplane, it didn't work for me last time. I had too many materials. I was too spread out. It's not as seamless to do on a plane as if it's just a shorter plane ride. And for me, Nashville's only about an hour and a half, 2 hours from Texas. And yeah, every time I travel with my cross stitch, it's just too much. Like you gotta have your spot for you gotta hold your frame, then you have to have your floss and your scissors and your chart, and it's just too much. So I wanted knitting to start on the plane, but I didn't want to take any of my current knitting because they're all Stephen West shawls that have like 5 balls of yarn. And I didn't want to have to travel with that. I wanted a one skein, easy to follow pattern that I didn't have to think too hard about, but gives my hands something to do on the plane. So I traveled on Friday and I got back on Monday. The trip was amazing. I met up with my friends from grad school. We have not been physically in the same room in a year and a half since we all moved to different states to get jobs. So it was really, really great to see them, to see where they ended up. And one of my friends ended up in Nashville. So perfect excuse to go travel to Nashville. So got to see the Country Music Hall of Fame and Museum, got to see the Tennessee State History Museum, got to walk around and just look at other stuff, got to see the Parthenon, got to see Centennial Park and the Grand Ole Opry, and got to go out. We went out and listened to music, did some bar hopping on Broadway, and it was an amazing trip. So great. But in the airport, I got a lot of knitting done, so much so that I started and finished an entire shawl, or cowl. This is the, what's it called? The Candlewick Cowl by Sarah Keller, and I highly recommend this pattern for beginner knitters. This probably in total only took me about 10 hours to knit. Really easy, and traveling on my airplane, I had 0 problems getting my ChowGoo metal needles through TSA, which was a miracle. So I started 2 projects, took 2 projects with me because I have a problem, but I really only worked on one primarily, and I got it completely finished. So let me show you what it looks like. Here it is. So this one is using the color Artemis from my local yarn store, which is West 7th Wool. It's down the street from my work, which is why it's so easy to run over there. So the day before my trip, I ran over there and grabbed some yarn for this. I used 1 ball and I barely dipped into the 2nd ball. So it was frustrating to have to buy 2 skeins of yarn when I really only needed slightly more than 1. So I have some extra, but this is an exclusive colorway from Madeline Tosh for West 7th Wool. And it is this gorgeous, gorgeous neutral with these pops of neon green and blue. It's very wearable, very fun. Normally I wouldn't gravitate toward wearing this color, but I wanted to work on something that was fun to look at while I was knitting, and that's what happened. So I will put a picture of what this looked like when I blocked it out. You knit it basically in this weird asymmetrical triangle, rectangle, and then you block it, and then you seam the two ends together like that. And then when you wear it, always so attractive to try it on. But anyway, it is this gorgeous asymmetrical triangular cowl that's just perfectly slouchy and adds a fun accent of knitwear to your outfit. I am obsessed with how lightweight it is. It's perfect for weather in Texas because here it goes between being really cold and really hot in the same day. And also it's just a pretty temperate area. I think it's supposed to get really cold here next week, so I might be eating my words a little bit, but normally it's not crazy cold here. So a lightweight kind of lacier cowl is perfect for the weather here. But it wears really easy. It doesn't cause a big lump in the back of my hair. That's why I don't really like wearing normal shawls or wraps because I feel like it's just too bulky back here. But this one wears super easy. It's very comfortable. It actually just came off of the blocking mats about 30 minutes ago, finished drying, and it's perfect. And I'm obsessed with how it turned out. So I may wear that for the rest of the video. But I washed it with some wool wash that smells like yuzu. That was a gift from Megan the Seattle Stitcher, and it worked perfectly, opened right up. It's nice and clean. And finished it in one sitting. And the only stitches you need to know for this are the knit stitch, the purl stitch, how to basic increase, and basic decrease, like a knit two together. So super fast. Again, got this done probably in about 10 hours. The 2 days that I did plane travel, I worked on this, and then one additional day of probably about 2 hours. Not bad. And zero problems with my needles was it was my biggest worry. But I did start another project in case I finished this one too quickly because it was such a simple repeat. I forgot that I'm a slow knitter, okay? This one is the Heartwarmer Cowl by Justina Lorkowska. And I am using Madeline Tosh sock yarn in the color Matcha for this. This is what it looks like. This was a skein that was a gift from my friend Megan the Seattle Stitcher. She sent this over to me, and it is like a twisted, I don't know if you can see the texture of the yarn. Maybe you can right there. It's a twisted 100% wool. And I am doing this cute little cowl. Here's where I started. It's just a one skein, simple thing. I did grab an extra skein because I think the called for is like 40 yards over what I had in this ball, and I really wanted to use this color for this. But I am starting off, what I liked about this is it's kind of like a sampler, band sampler, but for knitting. I don't know what the term is. I'm a cross stitcher. But basically you work 4 different patterns in the same cowl. So you start off with a 1x1 rib. So I did that. And then the next section is lace and braids, like cables. So I've got cables happening here and some lace happening there. Knitting's hard to show when it's on the needles. So it's just a circular knit pattern. It uses 3 needle sizes and a ball of fingering weight yarn. So I grabbed this from my stash, but I was worried I wasn't gonna have enough and I wasn't gonna be able to find an additional skein. So I did pick up 2 other options because I have a problem and the pretty colors were looking at me in the face when I was at my local yarn store. So I picked up this colorway from Madeline Tosh called Everything's on Pause. So cool. For whatever reason, this color reminds me of Alexis_My Amazing World. And then the other color, I don't know who this is by, and I don't know the colorway because the label's inside, but look at this gorgeous volcanic sunset. Ugh, I'm obsessed. This is technically a nylon wool blend, but I probably won't knit socks with them because I find sock knitting difficult, and I still have not finished my very first pair of socks. Anyway, could not resist those colors of yarn. So I have 2 balls of fingering weight there. Sorry about ya. And that was it for knitting. So that's knitting and my trip all rolled into one. I'm super, super happy with this. So I will have both of those patterns linked down below. I just got them off of Ravelry. I also have all of my knitting information for these projects on Ravelry. If you're interested in checking me out there, definitely do. I have my Ravelry linked as well. Okay, so I think that only leaves books. I did not do any quilting, and yeah, that's just books. Okay, so I read 2 books since I've seen you last. I am trying to read 100 books this year if you're not aware, and so it's probably gonna be a lot of books all the time, but hopefully that shouldn't be too big of a problem. Anyway, I read 2 books. The first book was The Ballad of Never After by Stephanie Garber. This is number 2 in the Once Upon a Broken Heart series. I thought it was a duology. Turns out it's a trilogy, and the 3rd book comes out in September. So now I'm on a cliffhanger. This is a YA series. It follows a girl who makes a deal with a almost like minor god who is kind of like the Prince of Broken Hearts. And some chaos ensues, and there's this whole like she's the key to an old prophecy situation. But there's also vampires. The vampires threw me off. I don't think the vampires quite fit in this world. Like the other world building is like very heavily fantasy, and then there's just kind of vampires. I don't know if I understand the whole vampire thing. I don't know if I know that they're necessary. This book is fine. I don't tend to gravitate towards YA, especially with this book, because I feel like it was written as a new adult fantasy and then someone just like cut the scenes. Like it leans heavily into the tension, and it feels like it was just cut off when it could have just flown. So I do struggle with this book a little bit, but I find the series compelling enough, like the plot is compelling enough that I want to finish the series. So I probably will read the 3rd book when it comes out. It was incredibly frustrating to get left on this cliffhanger that I was not expecting. But yeah, I mean, I'd say it's like a solid 3-star read. I liked it. I think it could have been more than it is. And that's just a restraint of the genre it was published as, in my opinion. But there is good tension if you like a good YA. I think this would be one that you would enjoy. I know she's written another series that's really popular, Caraval, and I need to check that out. But I need to get away from the YA for a minute because I've read so many back to back, and that's where I got my next series. So my next series was the Atlas 6 by Olivia Blake. And this has been on my TBR for a long time, and I finally got around to reading it. I've had several friends recommend it to me. It is very dark academia, and to quote Julie of Kansas City Girl in a Colorado World, it is a character study about fucked up people. So if you like a book that's driven by plot, this is not going to be one for you. I loved it. I think the hints of plot that are there and the world building that they've set up is intriguing enough that I need to keep reading. I need to know what happens, but it does kind of feel like it slugs a little bit. Sometimes, especially in like the lead up to plot, like plot's coming, but you're still kind of in the head of these characters. That being said, I think the character development is fantastic. It follows this 6 people who are chosen as kind of the elite magicians to join this secret society called the Alexandrians, that they have like this whole secret Alexandrian library access. And so they're chosen to join the society, but the trick is 6 of them are chosen, only 5 will be inducted. So you're kind of learning about the 6 people that are chosen, about their magical abilities, a little bit about the kind of urban fantasy vibe. Because it's our world, right? These people are plucked from like college or from other places. So there's a connection to the modern world. It feels very contemporary, but there's also magic. And it's almost underground magic. The audiobook for this one is really cool because it is read by 6 different narrators, but that can also be really frustrating if you're someone who listens at a high speed, because there are certain authors or certain readers that I need a higher speed than others. And certain voices are a lot deeper in register than others, so it almost feels harder to hear. So I might recommend not doing the audiobook, but also I enjoy the audiobook, so it's a 50-50 split depending on how you want to hear it or read it. But yeah, it's a very interesting book. I love learning about the characters. There's one character in particular who I started off really hating, but also identifying with. And by the end, it's like, oh shoot, that was a really, really important character, and I'm glad I didn't overlook them. Almost gave away the gender of the character. Not gonna do that. No spoilers over here. But I did start the Atlas Paradox, which is book 2, and I'm about halfway through it. So definitely gonna be continuing on with the series, but if you're someone who likes a plot-driven book, it's not for you. But dark academia, intense character study, 6 different characters. Well, 8 technically, but really, really good so far. And definitely reads more new adult. It's definitely more there, but it's not very like explicit like a romance novel would be. The way things are written about, it's very different than a normal romance book. And that's it. That's everything I think I have to share. I told you about my trip, about the new Flosstuber, about all my whips and my new starts, about a little bit about my plans for the next few weeks. I'm going to try and knock out Good Intentions, work more on Bayun Cat, and get my materials together for my next new start. So with all that being said, I hope that you guys have an amazing 2 weeks. I should see you in about 2 weeks for my next regular update. I hope you check out the Finish Parade and the other video I released, the 25 starts, just so you can get on the same page about what's going to be happening on this channel. I will be doing a massive giveaway to say thank you for hitting 4,000 subscribers. I honestly, I'm so floored, I'm so shocked, and I feel so supported by you guys. So leave me a comment, let me know what kinds of things you'd like to see in the giveaway. Let me know what you are working on, what your favorite whip of the moment is. If you're doing any cool Stitchy plans for the year, really just anything. Let me know if you've taken any fun trips, all those kinds of things. So I look forward to reading you guys' comments, and I will see you next time on my channel. Consider liking, subscribing, and doing all of the YouTube things. I'll see you guys. Bye. So the first thing, Lily. Lily. That's what I'm dealing with. So I started, are we good? Cats. Anyway,